I'm going to do a video on Jayden Reed this afternoon. Jayden Higgins. I was doing so well. I'm never going to forgive them for drafting all of these Jaydens and Jaylens and adding to Jaylens that are already on the team. But Nick and DeMeco had their post-draft press conference yesterday. Here are my reactions to my favorite replies. If you want to watch my replies to the full press conference, you can go over to the members-only section. It's only 99 cents a month. And we're having a lot of fun there. Very, very interactive. Here are my favorite questions and answers, as well as highlights from a bunch of the draft picks. DeMeco, how did you feel about the two receivers you drafted, Jayden Higgins and Jalen Noel?
Both guys, Jaylen and Jaylen, terrific men, first and foremost. And you got two different guys, right? You talk about playmaking ability, Jalen's ability to stretch the field and the deep end of the part of the field, and you have Jayden, just a big target, very similar. I know a lot of people say very similar to DeMeco and what he's able to do, but you get a receiver his stature and with his catch radius, just opens up a lot of things for us offensively. I know all of our guys are excited about. CJ should be excited about, the targets that he has to throw to.
CJ should be excited about it. Something that many of you reminded me of as we were talking ad nauseum about offensive linemen, that if you want to help CJ out, just add weapons on offense. So they added a couple of weapons. It's hard because we're coming off of a season where you had three really good wide receivers and there were certain things you couldn't do because the pass protection was so bad or because you couldn't run the football. So I don't think a lot of us we don't have the appetite right now to hear about how wide receivers can help CJ Stroud, because it's all for naught if you don't get the pass protection right. And that's where it comes back to Nick Caley and CJ getting more involved in pass protection, him being able to make checks at the line of scrimmage, the offensive line just being coached better. This is a draft where you got to really bank on that, and then hopefully you get the most out of Jayden and Jayden and Jalen Noel or Noel. There's a couple Noel highlights, and you got to remember too that yes, he's also great as a returner, and he's fast. He's super, super fast. He's like a beefed up Tank Dell. He's a small guy, more in line what normal small guys look like in the NFL. But I think just adding that element of speed and adding that in conjunction with Christian Kirk brings a lot to the offense and what they can do in the short game. But it also hopefully helps open things up deep for both Jayden Higgins and Nico Collins, just by being able to threaten every level of the field. I like the athletic profile of the wide receivers right now. If you look at the two X-type receivers they have in Higgins and Collins, if you look at two slot-type guys in Christian Kirk and Jalen Noel, and then you add into Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie and how they can be kind of possession guys through there. I like a lot of that. And then the rest of it is, as we know, is just a matter of can you actually keep CJ Stroud clean and healthy enough to throw to him. The kick return element is good too. More kick returners, more special teams players. A lot of those guys added in the draft. Next question. Was there anybody that you talked to in this process that really stood out as, hey, this guy's going to be a character?
Jumping off the bat is Jaylen Smith. I think he's the one who felt like he was already a Texan on his visit because he knew, Kaylin, knowing other guys, know a lot of guys on our team. So he's a very fun guy to talk to throughout the process. I was like, man, now all you have to do is we have to get you some gear, but I felt like he was already a Texan from the moment he came on his visit.
Jaylen Smith is intriguing as hell because you watch a cornerback whose highlight reel is the vast majority of them are tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I was really astounded at, and don't worry, some of his plays as a cover guy are coming, but boom, he comes up big. He's not afraid to play physical. I like that in the run game, he plays with really good leverage, which shows a coachability that a lot of cornerbacks don't have. Most of these plays that he's making in the backfield, he's also forcing the play back inside. Like right there, he approached that with the proper leverage. He made the tackle where he had to. Up here, watch this. Keeps outside leverage, boom, makes the tackle. His best plays were behind the line of scrimmage, and USC didn't necessarily use him in that role a lot. I like the upside of Jaylen Smith, perhaps, just because I think he's got all of those traits and elements that you look for what a swarm defense is. I'm intrigued by him because there's some of the coverability. So you look at him, I think, more as a slot. And one of his stats that was more impressive, played on the outside and in the slot. In the slot, he allowed 0.9 yards per coverage snap and a 59.8 passer rating when targeted. And they didn't necessarily use him in that star or nickel linebacker type position that they use Jalen Petrie, but he maybe adds a little bit more potential for man coverage ability, and that you could use him creatively at times to spot where some of Jalen Petrie's weaknesses might be, but still use Jaylin Smith as a blitzer. I was really, really impressed with his willingness and ability to come up and hit and play the run. On the impact of Aireontae Ersery, and what impact will he have in the future?
Yeah, Tay, with Tay, we had a guy who brings, that physicality, the mindset that I really think helps offensive linemen be good at their job. He's done a great job of playing left tackle and still has room to grow and develop. So excited about adding him.
John Harris suggested starting Tay Ursery at right guard this season so he gets experience and bouncing him to tackle in the future like Tunsil did in Miami. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm skeptical of Ursery at guard, and just to show you some highlights here, I like Ursery a lot. You can see he moves really well. He's really athletic. He's kind of stiff-legged, and he plays really upright. And you can get away with that a lot more at offensive tackle. He's such a gigantic human being that I don't worry about him lowering his pad level at tackle as much as I think Blake Fisher needs to, because Blake Fisher's he doesn't have the sheer body mass that Ursery does. But to go down to guard and to be that stiff-legged, even though you're really athletic, it's just a lot harder to do. So it'll be interesting. I'm not saying it can't be done. I just don't know if right here and right now with Ursery is the time you want to do it. Ursery results on film were good. He looks upright, though. Can he improve knee bend with coaching and strength and flexibility training? I don't give a crap about playing O-line. Yeah, yes, you can. You can improve it. There are a lot of massive dudes who get away with playing more upright just because they're so massive. Like whatever leverage you lose by playing upright, if you can actually use your mass to your advantage, you've got some natural leverage from being able to punch down when you're that big. I said yesterday, I go back to Orlando Brown Sr. He was a pain in the ass to play against, and he did not have great knee bend. He was just a big brute of a man. All right, DeMeco's asked about getting Woody Marks as a complimentary back in the 4th round.
Really like Woody and what he's able to provide. Really like him out of the backfield, catching the football. Really great hands. Really has that ability to make guys miss at the line of scrimmage, and the ability to play behind his pass, play physical. So like the addition of him to our running back room.
Look, does a lot of things really well. As DeMeco said, receiver out of the backfield is very enticing, especially, given that that's another option that the Texans could have used more, is using guys with silky athleticism as receivers out of the backfield. I think the one thing about him is he's not going to break a boatload of tackles necessarily, but for a guy who's not a monstrous guy, he does run through contact, and down on the goal line, he's done some really good things. He just doesn't really have breakaway speed, but he's got plenty of long runs. Interesting story too, just because he was at Mississippi State forever, then goes to USC, becomes another guy drafted out of USC. That looks like pretty good breakaway speed, but it's just not necessarily that top tier. There's a great year for running backs, and if you're going to take a running back this year, I know some people felt like all kinds of arguments about where he should have been on which board and who, whatever. That's all over the place by the time you get down to the 4th round. I like this. And there's going to be competition now. Hey, Damian Pearson, how does he fit in? I know there's other GMs and front office people around the league that still very much like Damian Pierce. So that does give you perhaps a little trade potential or something there. So more competition, more athleticism, really good vision. And as you can see, a wide receiver, he's very patient. You see right there, patient behind his blocks. And then he can turn on the jets. I keep reading that he doesn't have breakaway speed, and yet I turn on and I watch him, and he's got a hell of a lot of long runs in college. I don't need him to be Fred Taylor, damn it. I don't need him to be CJ Johnson. Chris Johnson. Yeah, CJ 2K. He'll be just fine. Make the squad. Question was about what did you like about Graham Mertz, the quarterback that the Texans surprisingly traded up to draft?
A lot of the playing experience, had some success at Wisconsin. They kind of went through the coaching transition there a little bit, and then he felt like the best opportunity for him was at Florida, and then he played there his first year, and then he got hurt a little bit obviously this year, but good demeanor, good presence, has good leadership, good size, throws a pretty good ball. So the type of player that we felt had some traits and characteristics of that position that we wanted to work with, and we had him here in the building and he was as advertised. So, we'll see how it goes when he gets here.
Okay, so I know it was a big surprise that they traded up to draft the quarterback. We've talked about how, all right, Davis Mills is in his contract year. A team might come along at some point that's desperate for a quarterback because of an injury. And Davis, by virtue of playing in the Shanahan-themed scheme, and those offenses are all over the place, would have some familiarity in with a lot of teams' offenses that he could step in and just be a steady quarterback if they desperately need him. Graham Mertz is interesting because he's another guy. He's been in college for 6 years, 4 years at Wisconsin before he goes to Florida. Goes to Florida and completes 73% of his passes. Went 239 pass attempts without an interception at one point. This is after throwing double-digit interceptions in 2021 and 2022 at Wisconsin. So he figured something out, but where the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. One of the knocks on him is that he's a little too safe of a quarterback. So the poor kid, he's at Wisconsin. He's criticized for throwing too many interceptions. He goes to Florida, and now all of a sudden the knock on him is he's too careful with the ball. But he did show progress and improvement in a better version of himself at Florida. But then he also wasn't, had to compete for the starting role last year and then tore his ACL. So it's not, I don't want to do this. Okay, but just on paper, there's a lot that matches up with Tom Brady's experience. He didn't have nearly as good a college career as Tom Brady did, but Tom Brady was competing for a job at Michigan, went in the 6th round. He's the apex best version of what can happen when you draft a quarterback that you don't need in the 6th round, but it's also one of the reasons it's the most valuable position in sports, and you can never have you can't have too many quarterbacks on your team like the Browns, but I think you got to perennially be trying to bring another guy along who ultimately either can be a backup for you or be a trade piece for you at some point.